Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City, where we want to help you realize your dream of creating a custom Lego city regardless of the space you have. And a great way to save space is to build tiny modular buildings just like these over here. These measure 8 studs wide and 32 studs deep. They are 1/4 the size of a standard expert modular building. And this is the latest one that I've built. This is a butcher shop on the ground floor, an office on the second floor, and a speakeasy style art museum on the third floor. The other two builds are a bookstore and apartment, and an ice cream parlor and a pastry school. If you want to check out the videos on the previous two modulars, do check out the links in the description. I originally designed these tiny modular buildings to be buffers in my Lego city, to fill up small gaps of space between buildings, or sometimes I felt that two full-size expert modular buildings just didn't fit too well together and I wanted a buffer building in between. But the response has been tremendous for these modular buildings, so I decided to build at least one of them to fill up the space of one expert modular building. So currently I'm at 3 tiny modular buildings. Let's have a closer look at this tiny modular and I'll give you some background info on the build. Here's how this build came about. Usually before I start a build, I'll think of the central concept for the building, and that would generally dictate the direction of the build in terms of a design and aesthetics for the build. A shout out to subscriber Darev's Dojo, who reached out to me on Instagram and pitched me a couple of ideas for the concept of the interior for a tiny modular building. He had some great suggestions and I was going to incorporate one of them into this build, but the eventual central concept and design of this build doesn't support his idea, but I will include it in a future tiny modular building. Coincidentally, just a couple of hours later, Lego Dandy sent me a message on Instagram with a picture. He showed me a butcher shop that he was working on. It was bigger in size than this tiny modular building and he had the first floor done. But what he had as a 3D sign was this piece over here. Now I saw that meat piece and guessed it was a Duplo, but I double checked with him because I'd never seen it before. Sure enough, he confirmed it was a Duplo piece, and he told me the reason he sent me the photo was because he was inspired by my use of a Duplo piece to create a 3D sign for a build, and that was my Lego store. This is a half modular building, and if you've been following my channel for some time, you know this is my 6-in-1 Lego store, and there have been many versions over the year. Because each time a new official set comes out, I'll try to incorporate it into my Lego store, and that's why it's now a 6-in-1 Lego store. But one constant that was present right from the very first build was this red Duplo brick. It was a toss-up between a regular 2x6 brick or this 2x2 Duplo brick. And there was someone from Reddit who said that the Duplo brick would fit very well because it will look oversized and artificial to the minifigs, since they'll be very familiar with the regular bricks. And I agreed with that concept, and I do like the oversized look. Generally, I do like oversized items when it comes to 3D signs or certain parts of builds. I think it just pops and makes things stand out. So it was this 3D sign that inspired Lego Dandy to use a Duplo piece for his 3D sign. Now, if you want to check out Lego Dandy, he doesn't have a YouTube page, but you can find him on Instagram. So I immediately went on Bricklink to find this part because I didn't want to buy the whole set. And luckily, I found a seller close to me and I bought it. So this meat Duplo piece for a 3D sign was all the inspiration I needed. I knew I was going to build a butcher shop. So I started designing the build and I completed the entire build except the roof even before I received the part. That's the story. I was inspired by someone who was inspired by me, and that inspiration was all I needed to create a concept for the build, and that dictated the look of the build. At the initial stage, I didn't know what the second and third floor would be, but I figured out soon enough the second floor would be the office of the owner of the butcher shop, as well as the third floor, which I decided to be a speakeasy style art gallery. This owner is pretty chill and he wanted a speakeasy style art gallery. He felt that the concept of walking through a butcher shop to get to an art gallery would appeal to pretentious yuppies. Only time would tell if he's right. Now let's have a closer look at the build. Let's start off with the front of the first 2 floors. This is the main entrance to the butcher shop. I use a dog bone for the door handle, the windows and an awning, and I use round brick and studs to create an ornate sides for this front of the ground floor. For the second floor, this is a little balcony for the office. There's a railing, and I use some snot techniques, that studs knot on top, to create a more visually textured look with these 1x1 dark blue tiles on the modified bricks with studs on the front. And there are two lamps over here, and there's one more awning over here. The sides are pretty straightforward, but let's come to the back, because this is where it gets interesting. This is actually an elevator shaft. I decided to experiment with an elevator to see if it will save space compared to stairs, and I can tell you with certainty it does not really save much space. So it's about the same if you build stairs or if you build an elevator, or at least my design for the elevator. But I'm pretty happy with it because it makes this particular modular different in design than the other two. I used the same build as I did for my skyscraper. So this is just a manual lift where you can take this Technic part and lift it up manually. There are no motors or gears or winches. There is a power box for show, just like this little crawler is also for show. For the back, I put in some windows just so that more light gets into the build and makes the back more interesting. This side is pretty plain, very neat in terms of the design. Everything is consistent, and that brings us back to the front. Now let's have a look at the top floor. The third floor is the art gallery, and that's why I used these 2x2 clear panels to create a very large window so that you can see some of the art pieces from the outside. But the real star or distinctive feature about the roof from the exterior would be the 3D sign in terms of the Duplo meat piece. And let me show you how I made the connection. If you have a look at the back of the meat piece, you see there's just a large single hole, and I couldn't take any regular Lego part and use it to connect this to the roof. So what I did was to use a Duplo plate. And the great thing about the Duplo plate, it does connect to a regular Lego plate, and this is a 4x8 plate which I attached to the top of the roof, at least at the front, with bracket parts. So there are 4 2x2 brackets, and then I used slope bricks and regular bricks to give it a nice finish, and I completed everything with these curved tiles, so it really looks nice and finished. And to put the Duplo piece, you just pop it on like that. So if you have any 3D sign that you want to create out of a Duplo piece which has this kind of single stud behind, put it on a Duplo plate and place that on a regular plate, and you get a very nice and secure fit. Let me just show you all around to the back of the elevator shaft, and you notice for these windows I used the 2x2 panels to mirror the front window. And that's basically it for the exterior of this build. This building is modular in nature, which means that the levels can be separated because each level is held in place by tiles and jumper plates. But let's have a closer look on the inside of the store, and it looks like there's a customer who's looking at a selection of meat at the deli counter. But before we get to the deli counter, let's have a look at the side. Just as you get inside the shop, you'll see this poster board which I created. It's a 3D poster sign, and it basically shows where the different cuts of meat in the shop come from. So I used a chicken drumstick part, a T-bone steak, and a sausage piece with some decorated tiles to give the impression that this showcases the different cuts of meat in the shop, and it's held in place by jumper plates right over there. As you look further into the shop, you will see this deli counter, and we have, of course, the butcher behind. Now I can remove the deli counter because it's held in place by jumper plates. And what I did was to use a windshield part to create this counter. There is a stainless steel, or what looks like a stainless steel cutting surface here. Those are selections of meat which have been cut. Same over here, some cloth, and some drawers over here. And I used these modified bricks as well as these modified rail pieces just to give some texture and dimension to the deli counter. And on top we've got jars of pickles as well as a chicken. This is not a live chicken, this is also just another 3D sign. And let's have a further look inside. We have the butcher with a cleaver, and over here we have a cash register, and you might see that. Can you see that? That's a ticket on the wall, and the reason for that ticket That's the ticket to the art museum. So the butcher is in charge of not just selling meat, but also selling tickets to the art museum. Now, to get to the art museum, you have to get to the elevator, which is over here, and you have to walk past the meat freezer, which has a box of something on top. And let me just remove this guy so that you can see the door of the elevator. And I put a 1x2 plate with 2 buttons to signify up and down. And that door will open up to get to the lift, which you see over here. And that's how the lift moves up and down. Now let's go up to the second floor, which is the office. I should mention that the owner of the butcher shop and art gallery is not very conventional. After all, it takes a special individual to create a walkway through a butcher shop to get to an art gallery. He's always really chill, and he dresses like a hippie. And he's got a very interesting bottle there. Doesn't seem to be anything inside, but he seems to be inhaling something. Not sure what that is. But anyway, he seems really chill, and he doesn't really like to be disturbed. But he gets his best ideas when he's here alone in his office. I'm not sure why. Well, let him enjoy himself, and I'll show you the inside of his office. Let's start with actually the outside, and that's the little balcony over there that overlooks the front of the shop. And that's just a really tiny balcony. I didn't tile this, and that's just to keep it studded so that I could put a minifig there. But we just have a door which barely opens completely, so the minifig basically comes out, closes the door. And this is pretty realistic because there are really some tiny apartments which have tiny balconies like that. And this is the office itself. That's the elevator door. We've got a fireplace over here and a thermostat and a control. There's his little workstation or office desk with a computer, keyboard, and some letters. His chair. And over here we've just got some very simple wall decoration, and that's a shelf with all kinds of different items, including some whiskey, I think, and some glasses. Well, that's pretty simple for this floor. Everything is tiled, but it is very simple. There isn't much space, but I think it's an appropriate office for this building. Here's a look at the roof of the building. Get a different view of the 3D sign. There's an air conditioning compressor over here. Other than that, it is empty. Nothing really spectacular about the design, but it's functional for the meat sign and for what it is, and especially for the design, because this is the elevator shaft. The design of the building and the roof had to follow. This roof is modular, of course, and it can be removed just like that, and we can see inside to this art gallery. Many of these pieces came from the original Pop Art Museum, but I've added some new things. And let's start off at the door. When you get in above the elevator, that's what I call my cockatoo, because it looks like kind of a cockatoo with this headpiece over here and their eyes, or it might look like an owl. In any case, it's a very cool, funky looking clock that I designed. Once you come in, you'd see this, what I call the white monkey, and that's a play on the golden monkey. In this case, if you watch Indiana Brick and the Temple of Arjitsu, you might have seen him capture this white monkey. And over here we have basically what the artist calls too much Lego. Too much Lego that is just burst through the walls. And it's basically a representation in a creative way of saying that AFOLs have a problem. They buy too much Lego. On the other side of the wall is a piece that I've showed previously, but I'll show it to you again, and it's called e-commerce, and that's represented by all the money around the computer screen. And we have a minifig, a lady who was basically looking at the art pieces. Obviously this art gallery is not bustling with business. And finally we do have the signature piece, and this is called the ice cream tree. After all, who doesn't like a tree of ice cream? I hope you enjoyed this look at the tiny modular butcher shop and art gallery. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let me know if you have any suggestions for concepts for my 4th tiny modular building. It will be a corner build, but in an opposite build from the ice cream parlor and pastry school. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.